Hello there, people of the internet. So, I get this question all the time on this channel. Not necessarily on this channel, but, you know, in real life too, I get this question a lot. People always ask me, since I have a whole lot of old school military surplus rifles, just in case you guys did not know, they always ask me how much time and effort I put into maintaining these rifles. So they always assume that like a lot of my time and I put a lot of effort. They assume a lot of what I do is just maintenance of these firearms, and that's actually not true, like at all. The setup that I have with these rifles, I don't have to maintain them very much, like at all. So I'm going to show you guys using my sporterized Kar 98 right here. This is a 1944 production Kar 98. This right here is an actual German Kar 98. Has been sporterized. I do have a original military stock for it, but the military stock, well, it is in remarkably good shape. And I do not want to tear up that stock. If I ever put this thing out on display and I use it for display purposes, then I'll put it in that stock. But for right now, the sporterized stock will work for the purposes of firing this thing. But I don't want to stick it back in the other stock that I have for it, because man, that stock is beautiful and I would be absolutely torn asunder if that stock even got a single scratch on it. But I'm going to run some corrosive ammunition through my Kar 98 right here. I have some military surplus, I think it's M49 ammunition. Stuff right here is corrosive ammunition. I'm not sure what year it was manufactured. Let me see if I can figure that out real quick. The batch that I have right here looks like 1953 production. I have no idea what's going on with this head stamp, but there's like some crap on the head stamp. Should be fine though. But yeah, 1953 production, so yeah, it's gonna be corrosive ammunition. So I'm going to show you guys how I take care of my rifles after I fire some corrosive ammunition through them. Most of my firearms that I have in my collection, I do not really need to maintain because I don't really touch them or mess with them, or like a lot of them I have my normal go-to rifles that need to be taken care of, but I have a lot of rifles that I don't even really touch. I just have them specifically for the sake of the collection, like my 7.5 Swiss rifle. I can't even find ammunition for that thing right now, and it doesn't have a front sight, so I don't really shoot it. So I don't really mess with that one. Or my 6.5 Jap, I don't really mess with that one either, just because of course, ammunition availability. There's a couple of rifles there that I don't really mess with, so I don't need to maintain them nearly as much as people think that I do. We'll get more into the general maintenance of a rifle and what actually needs to be done in order to maintain them, and what I do in order to not require so much maintenance. Since I'm here in Florida, there's a lot of humidity in the air, and there's a lot of outside forces that would otherwise cause these rifles to have a lot of issues. The reason I don't have to maintain them is because I have a very specific way of maintenance that is long-term maintenance. Meaning I can store the rifles for a long period of time without having to touch them. However, if I do touch them, since the oils and various bodily fluids on our hands are corrosive, even if I touch them or move them without shooting them, I would need to go ahead and at least wipe off those oils from my hands to avoid any rust. But we'll get onto that subject here in a minute. Let's go ahead, fire off a couple of rounds. I am yet to run this ammunition through this Kar 98. I ran it through my Turkish Mauser whenever I found out that it was keyholing. But this, if memory serves, fires pretty much right on the money. So we're actually going to step out to about 100 yards. I'm going to send some lead downrange at our steel target just for fun, basically. I'll go ahead and set up camera B and we'll move on from there. Okay. Here we are out at about 100 or so yards-ish. This is the best part about loading these old school military surplus rifles. Especially the 8mm, just loading from the stripper clip. I don't know what it is about stripper clips and 8mm, but man, there's just something so magical about them. Alright, this is surplus ammo, and it was like hand-me-down ammunition from an older gentleman who had passed away. I did not know him, but that also means I have no idea what kind of condition this ammunition was stored in. Last batches I fired just fine, but this stuff right here may not fire fine, so we're gonna see if we have any duds or hang fires. Well, we nailed our steel, that's for sure. And we had no duds or hang fires. And it extracted just fine. Remember, this stuff is corrosive ammunition, so we will need to clean this rifle properly. Ooh, nearly. Now, I think I pulled that one a little bit left. The rubber butt pad on this thing is absolutely essential, because even with it, this rifle recoils pretty harshly. Ooh, nearly. Actually, I think I'm hitting a little high. Okay, we're officially to the point to where I have no idea where I'm hitting, but I'm just gonna keep launching lead. Okay, alright, yeah, we were hitting a little bit high. I aimed down at the bottom of the target, and that's whenever I hit it, so I haven't really shot this rifle enough to really understand where it hits, but this one right here does seem to hit just a hair high. Not overly much, but just a hair high. Of course, I can't really see my target all that well either. You know what? That was so much fun that I actually walked all the way back to my house and grabbed another stripper clip. Originally, I was just going to do 5 rounds because this isn't really a video about shooting the Kar 98. It's a video about maintenance of military surplus firearms. But man, that was just so much fun. I figured another 5 rounds ain't gonna kill anything. I normally don't run 8mm Mauser just because A, the ammunition is quite expensive. It's difficult to find unless, you know, surplus comes in. There's just a lot of factors behind 8mm Mauser that stops me from shooting it, especially now that I figured out my Turkish rifle is keyholing. This is officially my only 8mm Mauser rifle. But let's go ahead, send some rounds. Now, since this does fire low, I'm gonna aim at the bottom of our target there. See if we make hits on target. Alright, I think we hit it. Hard to tell. I heard a loud slam, but that could have been the round hitting the rim of the car, maybe. Whoa, what the hell was that? I think I just saw something bounce out there, but I'm not sure. That might have just been me. Maybe I'm just seeing stuff. Like I said, we're at a fair distance, so I can't see all that well out there. Alright, that time I pulled right. Man, this 8mm Mauser stuff, like, it just has a certain smell to it. It smells awful, but it smells great. My shoulder's starting to get pretty sore. This rifle has quite a bit of recoil behind it. Okay, I have no idea what those last couple of shots with. I'm not sure how many of those I actually made hits on. I think I made hits on at least 3, but those last 2, I think I pulled them just a hair right. So my shoulder's getting quite tender. Okay, let's bring this in and I'll show you guys how I maintain these rifles after shooting them like that. Okay, so we are now inside in the nice cold air conditioning. Thank God. It was a little toasty out there. So, we just fired some corrosive ammunition through our 8mm Mauser. Gotta clear off some of the stuff here on my workbench / dining table. First thing we're gonna do, because we were just out shooting this thing, make sure it's clear. Yep, weapon is clear. Alright, now since we just fired corrosive ammunition through this thing, corrosive ammo has salt that builds up on it, or salt in the primers that build up in the bore of the rifle. So we have to get that salt out because salt will corrode metal very, very quickly. I do have an actual 8mm Mauser cleaning rod somewhere around here, but I just use this universal cleaning rod for most occasions. And I normally use the number 77 muzzle magic cleaner. This is a good go-to. It's just a good way to... I like being sure that all of the salt deposits and whatnot have been taken out of the rifle and having something that is actually legitimately designated to make sure that happens just makes me feel better. Not only that, but this stuff right here is not overly expensive. Now, a lot of people, they'll use just warm water, or they'll use like, they'll put some ammonia or something inside the water, and I do that too on occasion if I don't have any legitimately designated solvents to help clear out whatever it is that is inside of that barrel. So I've got just paper towels. I only shot a couple of rounds, which is why I'm using paper towels. If I like did a bunch of shooting that day, then I'd use designated patches just to 100% make sure that I have all of the corrosive salts out of that bore. But for what, the 10 rounds that I shot through this thing, I'm just going to use some paper towels. We're just getting the salts out. So you don't really have to soak your patch in this. Like I said, all we are focused on is getting out the salt. And we don't have a tremendous amount of salt that is built up in this thing because we didn't exactly fire a whole lot. And a lot of people will tell me, don't put a patch through one way and then pull it back through the other way because you're gonna redeposit a bunch of stuff inside of there. Well, I'm focused more right now about breaking it up. We can get all the already dissolved deposits out later after we have broken and dissolved them. Right now, this is just my dissolving phase. I'm actually running the same piece of paper towel through there that I had just ran through there. As you can see, it's pretty clean. I cleaned this rifle not too terribly long ago. So put that there. That has a bunch of salt and various corrosive elements on it. And now I'm going to throw another patch. This is a clean one onto my little cleaning rod right here. This isn't exactly rocket science. You got to get the salt out of the rifle. To do that, you need some sort of dissolvent, hot water, ammonia, this stuff. Anything will work as long as it works. Now, this stuff is primarily for muzzle loaders, but it works very well on corrosive ammunition as well. And it doesn't take a whole lot to make sure that all that salt has been vigorously cleaned out of there. Since we didn't shoot very much, I'm sure those 2 patches would be significant enough. But because this is my Car 98, and I absolutely do not want any sort of bore corrosion, I'm going to just run one more patch through, just like this. Now, these patches are already coming out clean. It doesn't take a whole lot for this stuff right here to do its job and dissolve whatever is in there. Alright, now that we have basically everything dissolved and soaked up and whatnot, I'm going to run just one dry patch through there to help get all the last bits of remaining whatever the hell out of the barrel. Go ahead and push this down the barrel. I imagine that we're not going to get much on this patch. Oh boy, that sounds dry. Okay, now we have a scrubbed clean, very dry barrel. You don't want to leave just metal that is, you know, dry out in the open, especially in a humid place like Florida. So I normally just spray just a little bit of Remington oil onto one of these patches and I'll give it a good scrub down there. This does a pretty good job at protecting things and keeping them from rusting. Alright, I turned on some ventilation so I don't end up suffocating while I'm doing this. This right here, just a patch with some of that Remington oil on there. We might get a little bit more crap and debris that sticks specifically to this oil. No, that looks pretty damn clean. Nice. Just for funsies, because I actually really enjoy doing this. I mean, at this point, this is like an unnecessary amount of cleaning in this rifle, but this is just what I do. Hell, I'm sure a single patch of this Muzzle Magic and a single patch of Remington oil would be more than significant to handle the corrosive ammunition that we just fired. Alright, this right here is probably going to be our last patch with Remington oil. Oh boy, that sounds delightful. So now we've cleaned out all the corrosive salt from the barrel. We've oiled the barrel to make sure that, you know, the various humidities and whatnot of Florida do not cause any rust. Now we're going to take our rag. Since the Car 98 here is something that I'm probably going to use regularly just because I have a lot of 8mm Mauser ammunition, and this is my only 8mm Mauser rifle, Normally, what I would do is I would take, for long-term storage, I would take a substance called fluid film, which works a lot like cosmoline. I can lather my rifle in it, and it doesn't evaporate, or it doesn't dissolve, or it doesn't slowly dissipate like the Remington oil will. It will actually stay on the gun and keep it lubricated. As a matter of fact, I still have some on this Car 98, even after, using it and shooting it and whatnot. It's just this thin line of basically what cosmoline is supposed to be. And that stuff stays on the gun and stops it from rusting. However, since I've had my hands all over this thing, I just want to go ahead and give it a quick wipe down just to make sure that the various leavings from my hands do not interfere with any of the metal work. We don't want any rusting to come on the bolts, or over near the handguard, or where the sights were, or basically anywhere I was touching. So I just use the same Remington oil. This stuff right here is great at getting rid of the various oils that have been on my skin, but I don't want to use the heavy fluid film because, like I said, that stuff doesn't go away. So every time I go out there shooting, I would have just crap all over my hands. Not only that, but if you apply it over and over and over and over, then you will, especially if you use the guns over time, dirt and debris and whatnot will start to pile up and accumulate on those firearms. That's why I use this stuff right here on the firearms that I use on a regular basis. And this Car 98 is probably going to be one of those firearms that I use on a regular basis. I might look into getting myself an M48, one of those Yugoslavian 8mm Mauser rifles, just for the sake of having a rifle that isn't so historically significant that I can use out on the range on a regular basis. Don't get me wrong, this rifle right here, fantastic rifle. It works really well. The Sporterized stock has brutal recoil, but besides that, it does work phenomenally well. But I don't want to wear the rifle out just from use and whatnot. So all the metal, I just give it a quick wipe down with this Remington oil. The Remington oil doesn't stay oily for very long, and it does dissipate over time, but it does a fantastic job of getting all the corrosive crap off of the rifle, like left over from my hands and whatnot. So I'll go through and I'll just wipe down all of the metal anywhere that I may have touched. And now that that's done, anytime I handle this rifle, I just make sure that I grab the wood and not the metal, just to make sure that no rust will accumulate on the metal from me touching it with my old frisky feelers here. Now that right there is just the general maintenance of a gun that I use on a regular basis. If I am using a firearm that I'm only going to use like once and then just keep it, in the collection, like my Swiss straight pull rifles, then, well, if I don't fire corrosive ammunition through it, which I typically don't fire corrosive ammunition just for the sake of ease and the sake of availability. But in this particular case, I had some corrosive ammo. For the Car 98, I had 8mm Mauser corrosive ammo, which is exactly why I decided to use specifically that, so I can show how I maintain my rifle after firing that corrosive ammo. But if I don't fire corrosive ammo, then unless I fire a particularly large amount of ammunition, I won't even bother cleaning out the bore. I might just use some Remington oil and put some oil in there just to absolutely make sure that it doesn't rust. And then I'll use that fluid film and I'll wipe down the metal, and that fluid film will stay oily on the surface of that rifle indefinitely. It does not go away unless you wipe it off and clean it off. And then I will, stick my rifle in storage, and it will remain there. And it is an excellent way to store the rifles. I mean, as long as I don't touch them and get corrosive salts and whatnot from my hands onto the rifle, then they will last indefinitely. Besides that, the only things that I really have to mess with are the rifles that I use on a regular basis. And I've got like 10 rifles that I legitimately use on an actual regular basis. And for the most part with those rifles, I don't shoot corrosive ammunition. This was just a special case because I wanted to show how I maintain my rifle after that. So hopefully, if anybody has any further questions on the amount of effort that I put into maintaining my rifles and the amount of time that I spend on it, I can just, you know, send them this video and they would maybe learn something about long-term storage of rifles, especially whenever you're talking about the military surplus rifles. Your modern day rifles, they don't really need as much care and maintenance just because the metalwork and the finishing technology and just technology in general has come such a long way in the past, you know, since these rifles were made. They require a lot less care, a lot less maintenance, especially if you're not firing corrosive ammunition out of it. So hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully this video wasn't a waste of time and ammunition. I tell you what though, man, my shoulder hurts. That firing 8mm Mauser from my Turkish rifle is not that bad because it's a full-size, full-weight rifle. But man, out of this sporterized rifle, even with that rubber butt pad, that is absolutely brutal. I want to go shoot something else, but man, it's going to have to be something soft core like a 223. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what y'all's thoughts are down below. If you have any questions at all, by all means, just ask, and I'm sure either I or the YouTube community will answer that for you. That being said, man, 8mm Mauser is just so much fun to shoot. I have bad experiences with 8mm Mauser ammunition though, since I typically buy surplus 8mm just because, you know, that's the only stuff that you can get for under $1 a round. And I typically just bring it out to my gun range and make videos on it. A lot of the surplus ammo is corrosive, not that that's really a problem with me, but it is mostly duds and hang fires unless you get yourself a particularly good batch. And this batch of M49 ammunition that I have seems to be a particularly good batch. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more. Like the video if you like the video. Description, you're going to find a bunch of links to all sorts of stuff. That being said, I don't really know what else to talk about here, so I'm just going to say, hey, thanks for watching. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garrett. Shame that bolt action shotguns aren't more mainstream.